The gallbladder meridian. Point locations. GB1, 0.5 Tsun, lateral to the outer canthus in the depression on the lateral side of the orbit. GB2, anterior to the intertragic notch at the posterior border of the condyloid process of the mandible. GB3, in front of the ear, on the upper border of the zygomatic arch, in the depression directly above stomach 7. GB4, within the hairline of the temporal region at the junction of the upper 1/4 and lower 3/4 of the distance between stomach 8 and GB7. GB5, within the hairline of the temporal region, midway of the borderline connecting stomach 8 and GB7. GB6, within the hairline of the temporal region at the junction of the lower 1/4 and upper 3/4 of the distance between stomach 8 and GB7. GB7, directly above the posterior border of the preauricular hairline, about 1 finger's breadth anterior to Sanjiao 20. GB8, superior to the apex of the auricle, 1.5 Tsun within the hairline. GB9, directly above the posterior border of the auricle, 2 Tsun within the hairline, about 0.5 Tsun posterior to GB8. GB10, posterior and superior to the mastoid process, midway of the curve line drawn from GB9 to GB11. GB11, posterior and superior to the mastoid process on the line connecting GB10 and GB12. GB12, in the depression posterior and inferior to the mastoid process. GB13, 0.5 Tsun within the hairline of the forehead, 3 Tsun lateral to Do24. GB14, on the forehead, 1 Tsun directly above the midpoint of the eyebrow. GB15, directly above GB14, 0.5 Tsun within the hairline, midway between Do24 and stomach 8. GB16, 1.5 Tsun posterior to GB15, on the line connecting GB15 with GB20. GB17, 1.5 Tsun posterior to GB16, on the line connecting GB15 with GB20. GB18, 1.5 Tsun posterior to GB17, on the line connecting GB15 with GB20. GB19, directly above GB20, at the level with Do17, on the lateral side of the external occipital protuberance. GB20, in the depression between the upper portion of M. sternocleidomastoideus and M. trapezius, on the same level with Do16. GB21, midway between Do14 and the acromion, at the highest point of the shoulder. GB22, on the mid-axillary line when the arm is raised, 3 Tsun below the axilla. GB23, 1 Tsun anterior to GB22, approximately at the level with the nipple. GB24, 1 rib below liver 14, directly below the nipple, in the 7th intercostal space. GB 25. On the lateral side of the abdomen, on the lower border of the free end of the 12th rib. GB 26. Directly below the free end of the 11th rib, where liver 13 is located, at the level with the umbilicus. GB 27. In the lateral side of the abdomen, anterior to the superior iliac spine, 3 tsun below the level of the umbilicus. GB 28. Anterior and inferior to the anterior superior iliac spine, 0.5 tsun anterior inferior to GB 27. GB 29. In the depression of the midpoint between the anterior superior iliac spine and the great trochanter. GB 30. At the junction of the lateral 1/3 and medial 2/3 of the distance between the great trochanter and the hiatus of the sacrum. GB 31. On the midline of the lateral aspect of the thigh, 7 tsun above the transverse popliteal crease. GB 32. On the lateral aspect of the thigh, 5 tsun above the transverse popliteal crease, between M. vastus lateralis and M. biceps femoris. GB 33. 3 tsun above GB 34. Lateral to the knee joint, between the tendon of M. biceps femoris and femur. In the GB 34, in the depression anterior and inferior to the head of the fibula. GB 35, 7 tsun above the tip of the external malleolus on the posterior border of the fibula. GB 36. 7 tsun above the tip of the external malleolus on the anterior border of the fibula. GB 37. 5 tsun directly above the tip of the external malleolus on the anterior border of the fibula. GB 38. 4 tsun above and slightly anterior to the tip of the external malleolus on the anterior border of the fibula. GB 39. 3 tsun above the tip of the external malleolus in the depression between the posterior border of the fibula and the tendon peroneus longus brevis. GB 40. Anterior and inferior to the external malleolus in the depression on the lateral side of the tendon of M. extensor digitorum longus. GB 41. In the depression distal to junction of the 4th and 5th metatarsal bones on the lateral side of M. extensor digitorum minimi. GB 43. GB 42. Between the 4th and 5th metatarsal bones, on the medial side of the tendon of M. extensor digitorum minimi of the foot. GB 43. On the dorsum of the foot, between the 4th and 5th toe, proximal to the margin of the web. GB 44. On the lateral side of the 4th toe, about 0.1 tsun posterior to the corner of the nail.